In Peru, the criminal court convicted 10 ex-military personnel for crimes of sexual violence against several women during the years of the internal armed conflict that shook the country. The latest Israeli bombardment on the Gaza Strip caused several casualties and wounded dozens, 258 days after the start of the genocidal aggression. And Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, as part of an official visit to the Asian country. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In Peru, the criminal court convicted 10 ex-military personnel for crimes of sexual violence against several women during the years of the internal armed conflict that shook the country. The transitory criminal court issued the sentence in the so-called Manta and Bilka case, which involves a series of sexual abuses perpetrated by former soldiers of the Peruvian army between 1984 and 1995. The soldiers had installed themselves in the community of Manta to take control of the area shortly before the allegations of rapes against the women and girls of the village began. The court qualified the case as a crime against humanity, for which the 7 accused received sentences ranging from 6 to 12 years in prison.
The defendant Martín Sierra Gabriel, with ID number 452723333, is convicted as the direct perpetrator of the crime against freedom and sexual violation to the treatment of the person with the initials VGA, an offense punishable under Article 170 of the Criminal Code, as amended by Law 26293, considered a crime against humanity.
In this context, survivors of these sexual crimes expressed their disappointment with the sentences handed down by the Peruvian criminal court.
It is very little, 20 years of struggle we have had, but I am not happy. I am not satisfied with 10 years of sentence.
We do not agree with the reduction of the sentences requested by the prosecution. From 18 or 20 years they have been reduced to 10 to 12 years respectively, and we do not agree with the civil reparation.
And we stay in Peru as a group of protesters went on a 48-hour strike against citizen insecurity and government negligence. The protest was convened by the leaders of the social organizations, whose strike is taking place on Wednesday and Thursday in the city of Juliaca. The demonstrators set fire to and evicted 2 nightclubs because, according to them, they are places where crimes are committed. In this sense, they assured that this is only the beginning of the protest against insecurity. We go now to Venezuela, where President Nicolás Maduro, during his national tour in the state of Miranda, inaugurated the Marizapa soccer field and rejected the interference of the United States in the Venezuelan electoral process. The head of state was received by the people of Miranda with a cultural event at the monument to the Santos Inocentes de Caucagua. During his visit, Maduro inaugurated infrastructure in the municipality of Acevedo, among them the new soccer field to promote the practice of the sport discipline that will benefit more than 1,900 children and youngsters in the community. The national executive also emphasized that the United States wants to appoint an ally to the extreme right to take control of the country's oil, but they will not allow it.
Mr. Palmieri, a man named Palmieri of the Gringos, came out and speaks as if the Gringos were the owners of Venezuela. You want a coward to be president and give our riches to the Gringos, Mr. Palmieri? Government of the United States, if you want oil from Venezuela, you must pay the market price. The oil belongs to Venezuela, not to the Gringos.
Meanwhile, popular mobilizations continue in Venezuela in rejection of United States sanctions and in support of President Nicolás Maduro. Let's review the details of a mobilization in popular sectors of Caracas. Our correspondent, Lionel Retamal, with the details.
With the painting of murals, typical dances, popular religiosity, and cultural expressions, a mobilization took place in the popular parish of La Candelaria, which seeks to activate participation and the vote in favor of President Nicolás Maduro.
In support of President Nicolás Maduro's campaign, as he said, media, social networks, streets and walls, the campaign is being publicized weekly, day by day, painting murals. Our Gallo Pinto, Nicolás Maduro, who is going to win again this time? Well, here we are in the area of Sarria, a very popular area of Caracas and probably from here. Here, we are going to demonstrate many typical dances and invite everyone to come and participate.
The Gallo Pinto is an expression that has been popularized in phrases, songs and symbols representing the candidate in defiance of imperialism and sanctions. This was a work that was done jointly with the people in charge of culture in the party, plus the cabinet of culture of Candelaria. We all worked together to support our president, and well, what we came up with was to make this rooster and show the world that our roosters are here. All marches are called against U.S. interference and sanctions, one of the main stumbling blocks to public and private development in recent years.
We, in all the marches that we have taken part in, we are mainly asking the empire to stop the sanctions and the blockade. Nevertheless, we continue with the sanctions and the blockade and we continue to move forward. We are building with our own bare hands. They have bet on taking away what is ours, and anyway, they are using, since they can't use the democratic way, since they can't remove President Nicolás Maduro through democratic means. So, well, they are looking for a way to take away our property. They are blocking us. They are taking everything, but just the same, we the people are stiff and we have endured years of sanctions.
President Maduro continues his tour across different regions of the country, disseminating the government program, delivering works, and committing to new projects for the next few years of his administration. Leonel Retamal and Marcos da Silva, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
On Wednesday, the Colombian government is set to complete the delivery of 11.2 billion Colombian pesos, approximately $2,800,000, in judicial compensation to victims of the armed conflict in the northwest of the country. These reparations, which on this occasion are being delivered to the inhabitants of Rio Sucio in the region of Chocó and Turbo in Antioquia, are part of the compensation order by the Colombian state to repair the damages suffered during the war. According to the victims unit, these compensations are included in the sentences handed down by Justice and Peace against Freddy Rendon of the Elmer Cárdenas Bloc and Rodrigo Zapata of the Southwest Bloc, former members of the paramilitary organization United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia. In Haiti, the number of displacements due to gang siege has increased by 600% in the last 3 months. A report published on Tuesday by the International Organization for Migration shows that the number of internally displaced people has increased from more than 362,000 at the beginning of March to more than 578,000 today, out of a population of 10 million inhabitants. According to the report, the increase in displacement of Haitians is largely due to people fleeing from Port-au-Prince, the center of gang violence, to other provinces that lack sufficient resources to care for the displaced. And on Tuesday, the Brazilian Supreme Court accepted the charges against a legislator, an official, and a former police chief who are accused of ordering the assassination of Marielle Franco in 2018. The accused are federal legislator José Brazao, his brother Domingo Brazao, who is an official of the Rio de Janeiro Court of Accounts, and Rivaldo Barbosa, the former chief of the Rio de Janeiro Civil Police. The members of the first panel of the Supreme Court unanimously accepted the charges after analyzing the accusations presented by the prosecutor's office and considering that there are consistent indications of the responsibility of these people in Franco's assassination. The prosecutor's office added that these citizens are involved with the paramilitary mafias known as militias that operate in Rio de Janeiro's poor neighborhoods. Also in Brazil, the processing of the bill that equates abortion after 22 weeks of gestation with the crime of homicide is passed. The president of Brazilian Chamber of Deputies, Arthur Lira, declared on Tuesday that the bill won't be processed urgently and announced the creation of a representative committee to discuss it with the Brazilian society. Last week, Lira included the document in the legislative agenda without prior notice and without specifying its number. Parliamentarians denounced that this work put the bill under analysis in the legislative plenary without having gone through an exhaustive review in commissions, and added this endangered a legal right won by women and girls in the country: abortion in case of rape or risk to life. Also on Wednesday, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, in the framework of his annual report, emphasized that policies of the current Argentinian government threaten to undermine the protection of human rights in the South American nation. Let's see.
Recent proposed and adopted measures risk undermining human rights protection. These include cuts to public spending, particularly affecting the most marginalized, the announced closure of state institutions dedicated to women's rights and access to justice, and an instruction from the Minister of Foreign Affairs to suspend participation in all events abroad related to the 2030 agenda. I urge the authorities to place human rights at the center of their policy making to build a more cohesive and inclusive society. This also means full respect for the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression.
Now let's take a short break. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Palestine, the latest Israeli bombardment on the Gaza Strip killed several people and wounded dozens in the framework of the 258 days after the start of the genocidal aggression. In this regard, medical sources reported that 2 women were killed and 12 others were injured when an airstrike hit the house of the Jadala family in the Nuseirat refugee camp. On the other hand, in the center of the enclave, a drone strike killed a man in a residential area in the city of Deir al-Balah in what appears to be a targeted assassination. It should be noted that on the 258th day of the Israeli genocide in Gaza, 37,431 Palestinians have been killed and more than 85,000 have been injured. We stay in Palestine, as on Wednesday, the Palestinian Prisoner Society reported that at least 90 civilians, including women and children, were arrested since the beginning of the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha last Sunday. PPS said that the number of Palestinians detained since the onset of Israel's relentless aggression on October 7th has reached 9,280, including children and women. The detainees either were detained and taken by the army from their homes at military checkpoints, and also forced under pressure to hand themselves to Israel. These detentions campaigns come amidst the comprehensive aggression launched by the occupation against the Palestinian people as a retaliatory measure which falls under the crime of collective punishment. In Lebanon, Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah emphasized that the scope of a ceasefire on the Lebanese, Yemeni, and Iraqi fronts will depend on ending the aggression against Gaza Strip. To confront the attacks of the Zionist Israeli entity, the Hezbollah spokesman pointed out that Tel Aviv hides its losses while enumerating 42 Israeli settlements that are evacuated in its entirety. Well, he also indicated that the actions against Gaza affect the course of negotiations. In this regard, he stated that the movement is ready to respond to illegal Israeli attacks.
The solution is clear: for a ceasefire on the Lebanese front, a ceasefire on the Yemeni front, a ceasefire on the Iraqi front. There is only one way to achieve this, and that is through an end to the war and the aggression on Gaza and on our people in Gaza.
And Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah also said that the movement is willing to respond to all illegal Israeli attacks.
Israel knows that no place in the entity will be safe from our missiles and our drones, and our strikes are not indiscriminate. Every missile is targeted, every drone is targeted, and the proof of that is the HUD. It knows that we have a list of targets, and we have the ability to reach these targets, which will shake the foundations of the entity.
We now move on to other topics. The heavy rains associated with tropical storm Alberto over Mexican territory have already left at least 3 people dead in the northern state of Nuevo León. The governor of the state, Samuel Garcia, confirmed that 3 minors died in the entity in different incidents registered on Wednesday by the tropical cyclone, whose center should enter Mexican territory in the coming hours at a point between the states of Tamaulipas and Veracruz, and is expected to lose strength to become a depression in the evening of Thursday. And landslides caused by the heavy monsoon rains have left 15 dead, several injured, and millions displaced in Bangladesh and India. 8 civilians were killed in southern Bangladesh, the world's largest refugee settlement, on Wednesday. Authorities reported that hundreds of people were displaced from areas considered at risk. Meanwhile, in India, at least 6 people have died due to floods and landslides on Tuesday night. The waters exceeded the danger levels in the Kopili, one of India's largest rivers, leaving more than 16,000 people affected by the weather conditions in the Assam region. We now have a final short break coming up, but before, we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, as part of an official visit to the Asian country. In this context, Russian leader was received by his Vietnamese counterpart To Lam at the presidential palace, where they discussed issues such as the strengthening of the Integrated Strategic Partnership in trade, economic, scientific, technological, and humanitarian spheres. At the same time, they agreed to intensify cooperation in security and defense matters and agreed not to form coalitions with other countries that could harm the other. This is President Vladimir Putin's fifth visit to Vietnam, where he arrived after a two-day visit to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And in Ukraine, Mikhail Podolyak, advisor to the head of Zelensky's office, reacted to the new treaty between Russia and North Korea, saying that the sanctions towards Pyongyang have completely stopped working. Podolyak commented on his X account that the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty signed on Wednesday between Moscow and Pyongyang during Russian President Vladimir Putin's official visit to North Korea represents a blatant reversal of the sanctions imposed on the Asian country. Podolyak also asked the United Nations and other international organizations why there has been no reaction on their part regarding the signing of this agreement, adding that their silence is extremely eloquent and deafeningly noisy. We go now to Somalia, where the death toll for cholera rose to 123 since January. The Ministry of Health and Human Services and the World Health Organization, WHO, said in a joint epidemiological report released in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, that more than 14,000 cholera cases with a 1% case fatality rate have been reported this year. According to the WHO, Somalia has an ongoing cholera outbreak, which has become worse since the floods of December 2023, which destroyed sanitation facilities and caused further displacements, although the report released by the WHO said that there was a notable decrease in cholera cases in the second week of June compared to reported cases in the first week. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.